Okay, so what still needs done to bring this one over the finish line? Because not swag, but group one is done. As of like 3 minutes ago.
It says 5 minutes in GitHub here, but very good.
Okay.
Close enough.
I can't
Yeah.
count. I'm just an engineer.
I'm sure 2 minutes went by. Yeah, sorry. I was probably going to look at my PR, which is I'm going to count as progress, although we need to discuss that stuff. But yeah.
Well, I guess we're ready.
Yep. I've got the PR pulled up and I'm looking
Great.
through it.
Oh, sorry. Do you want? Shall you share? Should I share? Does anyone care?
If you don't mind, I do not generally share my screen because of how embarrassing my tabs are for the amount that are open.
I did some tab hygiene. I will dare to share this group of tabs. Hang on.
I did mine this morning and I closed out 50 tabs I wasn't using.
Usually the new year happens and then I just kill everything.
I've had some PC problems, so I'm trying to help conserve memory.
I literally addressed my tab problem by purchasing memory. And it was the cheapest option by far over time. Is it possible I don't have sharing powers? Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm just bad. Okay, hang on.
It's the green button.
Yeah. Used to know Zoom. All right, I'm sharing a lot of tabs, which are probably all related to OpenSSF SIRT. At least I hope they are. This is, sorry, I'll do this. Well, so I finally just went in, edited up the.
I like that view. How can I get that view?
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing.
Oh, what's that?
Much better than my crappy view that does it all in line.
Oh, I don't know. Click on the buttons and it mostly works. Learn some Git commands. I learned Git stuff the hard way by lots of trial and error, and I'm not an expert. Anyway,
Definitely not rich diff.
I mostly went through this from memory, having recently read the one or two other docs we've been working on that were Google Docs. I did not double check everything that was already in here. Got rearranged or summarized. I didn't delete anything material. I did reduce some number of words. I did not carefully go through our other Google Doc or two and carefully integrate those, but I wanted to have something to at least get moving with today. That's roughly where things are. Probably easier to look at. Well, I can somewhere there's a button, I'm sure, to look at the new doc. Or not. No, I want the link. Wow, rich diff. Okay, like I said, I'm not a Git or GitHub expert. Is there a show me the new doc?
Not final.
Release?
Unless you have it on your own repo.
I do.
We would see the final file because it's already merged on yours.
Sure thing. Hang on.
Unless I think we view the branch directly, but shows you how much I know about GitHub.
It's all right. I will search for. I did learn how to pin my repositories, but there it is. Click 2.
Fancy. All right, this looks better.
I understood what you said and I found it. All right. So major shifts were swapping finally 2.2 and 2.4. Again, didn't intentionally remove anything material, but a good bit of reduction.
Mm-hmm.
I went top to bottom, so you'll see where my time went in that order. I still stumble across I don't know what to say, dependency, interrelationships of services, staffing, engagement, criteria, and resource estimates. They're hard to separate out unless we just pick something or some boundaries somewhere. Please.
It might be beneficial if you open a new tab and go to the section 1. We just went through and plugged in some timelines.
Will do. Hang on. Did you?
Because this might help break down some of those milestone sections that need to be completed. So we have defined deliverables. So what's going to end up existing as a result of that step or milestone. And then if you scroll down to the resource estimate, gone through and kind of outlined how long some of these things take. So like that one's the survey development. The one that's more prudent for, I think, the development of the services and the educational material around them is down under 1.3, maybe. Yeah, development of the training for the security buddy usually takes about 2 to 3 weeks, and then their CERT process training development about 2 to 3 more weeks. CERT process training itself is 4 to 6 hours per CERT member. Linux Foundation training, defining the course list, should take about 1 meeting. Completing the courses, 4 hours per CERT member, and then kind of breaking it down that way. So if you go back to the section 2, we should be able to apply those same rough concepts.
Hold on, let me find. I wrote some of this down. It'll help.
Yeah.
And I stopped writing here. Okay. I think, was it last week or the couple of weeks ago? Emily, I don't think you were present. It was me and Krob and Randall. Anyway, we had a call during which I expressed my partial confusion and, sort of focus has been an issue for me going on, kind of getting through this. What are we sort of after? Maybe this has been decided and maybe it hasn't, but I think we started talking about this as sort of the educational guidance in year 1 versus, I think in my words here, I called it like direct operational response services. Mm-hmm. And everything you just said and have in section 1 makes sense, right? You can estimate those things, I think, pretty reasonably. I have no argument with that way of doing things. If, and I don't know what the answer is to that, if we want to say, an incident happens, an event happens, and the CERT will respond to that, a little bit trickier sort of staffing estimate. If we're not doing that in year 1, that sort of solves the problem. My impression was we might be doing that in year 1, or we have some say in proposing, if not deciding that. So that's been a struggle for me all along, and that led me to this. My resource estimate issue is you're estimating sort of emergencies that are external, and that gets a little messier. Over.
So it's a little bit more than just that, because once the CERT list of services are defined, there's the development of the procedures for each of those services that needs to be done. And the development of those procedures is going to be, 1, contingent upon the problem space, and then 2, requiring us to analyze the survey feedback from 1. So you could probably reasonably estimate that it will probably take about a month to integrate the final survey report feedback into the services to make sure that the services address the problem space. And then from there, development of the procedures based off of all of that will probably take maybe about 6 weeks for the group to do. So you've already got 1 month, and then you've got another 6 weeks, and that's just getting us the procedures around how to execute the services. And then from there, the development of the associated educational guidance materials for anybody that's using our services. So there's the consumer facing side of those same services. That'll also need to be developed. You can probably tack on an extra 2 to 3 weeks because it's sometimes easier to do those side by side with the overall procedure development. And then once those are in place, then there's the actual support of the incident. I think for us, it's reasonable to state that any incident should have no less than 3 responders and probably no more than 7, depending on the complexity. And I'll pause so you can catch up to the numbers I've been throwing out.
Yeah, sorry, I got as far as the first one, I think.
So integrating the results of the Section 1 survey is probably going to take about a month.
Okay, and this is sort of what maintainers want from a CERT?
What they need, what the problems
yeah.
are. Yep.
Okay. I'll do this very notey right now, but yeah, please, if you don't mind reading back or running back through, that'd be great. I'll catch them here. Yeah, okay.
So the survey is about 1 month. The development of the internal procedures for each of those services is probably going to be about 6 weeks. And then the consumer facing educational material and guidance for those same services is probably going to be an additional 3 weeks. And then for supporting incidents, we should have a minimum of 3 incident responders with probably a maximum of 7 contingent upon the importance of the particular vulnerability or the level of effort. And those are not hard fixed.
Is this, sorry, sort of on staff folks, or is this, sorry, is this like per incident? So a thing happens
per incident. Yeah.
Oh.
And the reason why I'm kind of centering around odd numbers, one is in case there's a dispute within the team, you can still have a majority. It's not split down the middle. For smaller incidents, having 3 people helps distribute that work a little bit more, particularly if they're in different time zones from where the open source project is. So hopefully you can get better breadth of coverage. And 3 at least gives you some semblance of diversity and opinion and expression associated with resolving whatever the incident is. And more than 7, I feel like you get into situations where you end up talking more than actually completing the tasking. I mean, realistically, managers can manage 6 to 8 individuals. So if you take that same kind of math and apply it to incident response.
Got it. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm pausing while I try to figure out. Again, I guess this sort of depends on what size and shape of incidents we expect.
Yes.
Is this like a log4j size thing, or?
Well, so that's what we'll need to do is we'll need to do like t-shirt sizing. Small incidents, probably 3, medium is 5, large is 7 plus, depending. And that incident sizing will need to be developed as part of the CERT procedures to do that assessment, that intake assessment.
Okay.
And I would.
Oh, good. Sorry. Krob? Oh.
No, go ahead, Emily.
I was going to say, I would recommend adding in there probably like a testing window for previous incidents and like comparing our procedures against them so that we can see whether or not the procedures as we have them written for the incident sizing and the assessment that we're performing kind of matches with that. just to double check and make sure that we're not that far off base. And I would recommend probably about 2 weeks for that. I mean, everybody's going to look at Log4Shell and be like, that's an extra large incident.
Okay.
But the actual work that the team might end up taking on is maybe minimal in those kinds of scenarios. So like that's part of the assessment process. So yeah, about 2 weeks for that.
And that's not going to be for every service the CERT offers, but when there is a incident that they're handling, I think those numbers feel pretty good. And that gives us time to make sure we have documentation. That gives us time to have that post-mortem reflection on how do we need to adjust the process afterwards, and then potentially write up proactive things like here, push us over to the education SIG because we need to have a job aid for this or that.
Yep. And we'll also need to provide time commitment estimates for incident responders based off of the size of the incident and that initial assessment. So that'll need to be an explicit call out milestone, because that is time that we can't factor for, or the resources that we can't factor for at this point until we get there.
And that's also, since the voting is trending towards predominantly volunteer team, we're going to need to have a ask to the foundation, dear foundation, we need to have X amount of volunteers, and here's how we're going to leverage their time.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I was just looking below to see if I had.
I would add onto that sentence.
Oh, sure. Yep.
That you just wrote, time estimates for commitment to be determined.
Yeah, I was gonna hang on one second. I figure out where I am. That's what I went to go write down, and then I saw an unfinished sentence. Yeah, so case event incident based resources are the thing we're talking about is, I guess, to be determined, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, based on this, partly this, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Related to maybe.
Because I can definitely see some of the smaller incidents only taking maybe about 6 hours. And that's just to like check everything off and make sure that everything has been done. Because maybe the project's got their act together and it's more of just they need somebody else to reassure them that they've done everything that they can.
Yeah.
Whereas some of the larger ones, just hopefully not a month of work, because that would suck.
Back to the 3.7 number a moment. For example, the smaller 6 hour incident. We want 3 people for, we prefer to have the multiple inputs, or
I think it might
6 hours is one person's day and they've got it wrapped up. But any discussion there yet, I guess.
So I think the 6 hour like kind of initial estimate might be for the total of those 3 individuals, but that depends. Like it could be that you've got 3 individuals assigned to an incident and somebody's got a lot of free time, so they'll go through and they'll crank everything out and then check back in and make sure, hey, can you double check that we're all in agreement here? Review. Or it could be that somebody spends 2 hours coordinating and another person spends another 2 hours writing tests for the project.
Got it.
So it should be like that timing estimate should be based off of the incident size and then distribution of hours against the amount of incident responders that are assigned. But regardless, we should definitely have more than 2 incident responders assigned in case some sort of conflict comes up. There are alternatives to reach out to as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Um,
Oh, can do this, which isn't going to really help much, but.
Okay, so we've got the explanation, we've got a bunch of key steps and milestones with some resource and time estimates in there with stakeholders.
Yeah, a bit. Some of this was editorializing as I went.
Yeah.
Again, this was in some existing paragraphs, but I broke it out a little bit more. I don't not to take us down a interesting side path, but right, we're coordinating an event. Obviously, the software maintainer developers are a key stakeholder. The folks who found and reported the issue are users, community at large. But these last two, and again, I don't think this may not even belong here. Maybe a higher level question. We don't have to address it in seriously here, but maybe a couple minutes worth of, do we have intentionally excluded stakeholders? Not that they aren't welcome to do what they want, but we're not considering their needs in our work. And then public safety is a little bit code for possibly a government agency who is trying to deploy blue team. Starts with a C, they all end in A. 4 letters, not 3.
So,
or FDA or whoever else, right? Is actually trying to protect people. I don't know where that lives in my previous world. That was a big thing. Obviously, was our funding source for the most part. But
I have comments, but I would like to hear Krab's assessment.
Yeah, please.
From my perspective, those are end consumers. While they may be very interested and have very valid reasons for their own desire to be involved in the process, they are not directly fixing the problem. So they would become the kind of end audience. Once we go through, the incident is resolved and coordinated, and we're ready for that disclosure piece. Maybe those folks subscribe to whatever broadcast mechanism we endorse, or it's going to vary project. We just had this kind of conversation a little bit ago with Randall. Different communities operate differently. We want to be respectful of that, but some people don't want to talk about it, and we're going to try to encourage good practice. Hey, have you posted an advisory? We can help you write the advisory if you want. But maybe those .gov people around the world kind of monitor whatever output this group provides, whether it's a mailing list or they are when this goes public, they get an email notification and whatever computer tool we're using. But I would, they are not directly involved in fixing the problem, so therefore they do not get a seat at the table at this point.
So I think there's an interesting thing that we haven't actually discussed yet and might be worth mentioning and checking with the OpenSSF. If the OpenSSF is standing up a security incident response team, even as a nonprofit organization, does the existing legislation for whatever world government we're talking about require us to report incidents upon reporting within a certain amount of hours, even if it's an open source project? So I think that needs to be addressed, which I think is a OpenSSF legal question.
Yes.
Because
so that needs to be put in the plan to talk about, because that's absolutely something we will come up.
Yes. And I don't believe that we necessarily want to be in that position, particularly since it could be a breach of confidence with open source projects if we are obligated to provide that reporting to a government. And then the next question, and Rob, you brought this up, is more around, we have not to date discussed an post-engagement mechanism for discussing the engagement.
Yes.
Such as a mailing list or a blog post or things of that nature. And if we are intending on doing that, one, we need to decide what format that takes. And then we also need to determine what support systems exist for that. If it's a blog, it's relatively easy. It's OpenSSF, marketing, outreach, coordination. If it's a mailing list, we can set that up as well and have people subscribe to it. But one of the problems that was discussed on the last call was around this lack of inter-silo communication across multiple communities and foundations and different open source projects. So whatever we come up with, we need to do a significant level of upfront effort in getting people enrolled and on that listing. And then as far as the people that we don't want to be stakeholders, I think you called it out, the bluest of blue teams. There are individuals that are very interested in vulnerabilities for their own ends and means, and that they are not the intended stakeholders of this group.
Yeah, I was pretty confident that they were not. The question sort of is, do
We should be explicit.
we say that somewhere? Yeah.
I don't.
We could just leave it off and make it, well, it's implicit. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm not going to go out and talk to every bank on the planet every time we assist with getting an upstream package fixed. But if we had a RSS feed, a blog, an API, whatever, how we're communicating it, all those entities are welcome to subscribe once things are public.
We can also,
I would encourage them to.
We can also take advantage of some existing open source projects for managing the vulnerability portions of this. GSD could potentially be a really good one for this, because I believe there's a subscription-based format for it. If there isn't, we can certainly put in a feature request for one, and we can leverage GSD as that mechanism for subscriber communications around disclosed vulnerabilities, or even suscepted ones, because that's how they're set up.
If I put GSD before CVE, is that acceptable to this?
Part of our practice, you should follow accepted vulnerability management practices. One of those practices is you get an identifier. It's important for us that that's our process. It's in our playbooks. And then, if our the end communication piece is GSD, great. If we get developers and we augment Vince, and the final step in the workflow is Vince barfs out an email or has an API people could tickle, great. We haven't talked about how we want to execute on that yet. And
one should not preclude the use of the other. And that's especially important, because things that may be reported to us may not warrant a CVE, but they might be a security concern. And in those cases, GSD as the start of that workflow makes sense. But that may not be true in all cases. It may have started as a CVE. So there's all sorts of different things. We have a lot of research in this area that probably needs to be discovered. So that should be a time and a resource estimate that's called out, is what is the most appropriate communication medium as it integrates with the processes as we have defined them. And that might be slightly more extensive, because there's the initial research, then there's the trial of that thing and see how it fits.
I think that's going to be part of our rules of engagement as we work with different projects. How are you going to communicate this? You have a set of recommendations and endorsements. We like these things. You're free to do your own thing. And then maybe we get an agreement that after you've disclosed, we will also do something, or push a file to GSD, or however the mechanics of the get worked out. But we need to have an opinion on, we think this is good practice, and we encourage people to follow this procedure. You're free to do whatever you want.
So that level of research and that integration with the processes should be a separate call out. I would recommend about 3 weeks for the research and the integration, and then probably about maybe 2 weeks of testing and making sure that we're comfortable with what it is that we've decided. So 5 weeks total. assuming we make the right decision the first time.
I'm confident we will go through a lot of trial and error. But that's okay.
That's what iterating is.
Mm-hmm.
So the staffing model is still up for vote, and it looks like we'll have a decision maybe tomorrow.
Tomorrow. We've had a long time and no one touched it until today again. So yeah, tomorrow is the day. We can change in the future. And I'll say the sponsors are free to say, we don't like that, try again after we propose it.
I kind of voted for one a few minutes ago, but I don't have
that's okay.
It's all what we want, right? I mean, or I don't know who the decision makers ultimately are, but I'm fine with not one, but
we're going to go by group consensus.
All right.
And if people have until tomorrow to finish that vote, and just understand that in the future, we might decide to pivot, or when we go for a funding proposal, the sponsors may ask us to rewrite that.
So if it's volunteer based.
So that's what it's looking like.
Yeah. So we'll get those numbers hopefully after tomorrow's meeting for an update to this.
Yes.
Okay.
But we will be hiring some core staff. I'm going to propose a program manager to manage the execution of the plan, and then would potentially roll into kind of operations of the SIRT. So we will have some staff around, but they will not be predominant. They're not going to lean into staff for incident response so far.
And we've already accounted for training in the other one.
Mm-hmm.
I would also say that the throughput of the SIRT is going to be contingent upon the size of the incidents and the availability of the volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
And that will be a time and resource constraint that we will need to call out. Have we also talked about this scenario where we have too many requests and they have to fall on the floor?
Not yet.
Because that might be another staffing option, is that if there is an overflow, that we ask for emergency funding from the OpenSSF to provide people to assist.
Yeah, either contract or you petition the members.
Yeah.
Immediate help with a confidential issue. Can you please, we need this type of personnel to assist.
And you can probably reasonably expect 10 to 12 hours of ramp up time for any single one of those requests.
Yeah.
So that would probably be worth calling out in the overflow and section. And that's worst case scenario.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and maybe how this gets rolled out is we ask the membership to donate 2 people's worth of time for blah interval. And then we say, we also, can we have 2 backups that we would train up, and they're not necessarily in the rotation, but we would potentially reach out to them as needed to burst up.
Onboarding.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not 10 to 12 hours until you get an answer back from somebody and a volunteer shows up. It might be, but they also need 10 to 12 of onboarding.
Yeah.
Before they can even act in the first place.
Yeah, and that assumes that they don't have any prior training. So there
It
will
could,
be some
might be less, yeah.
yeah, there will be some shortcuts in those processes. I hope we don't get into that situation, but you never know.
Yeah, so I think Crow was mentioning, contracts and things, but my mind is more oriented around this.
Well, I can't even.
There's a thing. Yeah, no, you
I
have
can't
to
even
hire someone in
envision.
time.
Yeah, I can't envision having a contractor on tap that has the right skills and contacts that the community would accept.
So I wouldn't go that far. There are plenty of open source foundations that have contracts for audits with various red team organizations. So some of those skills have the potential to transfer, and it may be such that the OpenSSF sets up a pre-negotiated contract with those entities in the event that this is needed. I can't imagine that they'll
That's
do
possible.
that preemptively. It might be one of those like something has happened and we really need this, so let's do it on the fly. But at least we've talked about it, and
Yeah.
it's posterity because it's on YouTube now
That's right. That's forever.
until those servers fail.
Yeah.
Hang on a second. Again, not sure that it matters here, except that I went to write down a few stakeholders.
Okay.
Do we leave implicit or explicit that we're not? Here's the scenario. There's a big thing going on. A LF OpenSSF member organization gets a request to delay their response a little bit for, let's even call them legal and legitimate red team purposes. And again, we don't have to hinge this whole philosophical issue right on this one bullet point way down in section 2 here, but do we want to say that, do we want to state that we exclude those considerations or just leave it unsaid?
We're going to need to have a mission statement and kind of have that rules of engagement.
Cover it there. Okay.
Documented somewhere.
Okay.
Just so we avoid those circumstances, not dealing with it in the heat of the moment.
Do we have that defined as a milestone?
Not yet.
That rules of engagement is defined.
We'll need that.
Okay, so
I'm
let's
gonna
get
make
that.
this. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. This should probably come out of this doc, but I'm going to just save it for the moment.
Defining that shouldn't necessarily take long. Probably about what, two to three meetings? 2 meetings to discuss, 1 meeting to vote.
Yeah.
3 hours tops.
What is the SIRT SIG? Is that the proper level? Okay.
Yep. That'd be a SIG thing.
Yeah, got it. Okay, sorry. I'm settled there. I can take care of that edit.
I would add in that the 3 hours of actually defining and writing that up so that we have the time commitment needed to complete.
Got it.
The actual execution of the vulnerability assessment is still to be defined because those are procedures and documentation and like triaging. That'll be the outcome of this. So not necessarily for today.
Yeah, this was sort of more just that a service would be vulnerability assessment. And yes, understood that it's, depends on a number of other things. Oh, I did note this. I think perhaps in our older text, it may have said optional vulnerability assessment, which caused me to write this part. And this may have been originally framed as a maintainer of a project requests, specifically requests the service or the help of the assessment. And my comment here is that even to consider whether or not to get involved, you have to do a certain amount of assessment to get that far,
Correct.
the triage sort of step. So
Yep.
the CERT must be able to do some assessment. The question, of
Yes.
course, becomes when do you decide to do more or stop?
Correct.
Okay.
Agreed.
Okay. I put optional in front of the things that were called sort of experimental or
Sure.
experiment with. Yeah, here, let me check the time. Here again, we have, and then this is almost copy and paste that I just broke it out. Guidance and best practices, and then year 2 and later seem to be actually do, perform response, execute response services. Do we, I'm impatient is the answer, is my position, and would not want to wait a year, but I don't know if there's consensus on this or we have a plan.
So I think line 72 may already be included within some of the time commitments that are set aside in stream 1 associated with educating project maintainers. Like in providing an explanation of the CERT services and educating them on those materials, we may choose to cover at least lightweight of how to deal with when somebody reports a vulnerability to you, and here's where you can leverage our services to assist in that process. So it may not necessarily be year 2. Year 2 may be more the explicit kind of walkthrough to allow them to be significantly more self-sufficient based off of our lessons and learnings from triaging previous events.
So you can either mark that as dependent or refer to 1.3.
Yeah. For both of them.
Yeah.
70 and 72.
Right here.
So you can keep your thoughts here in this section, but say this is, we're going to do this.
Yep.
Over y'all.
I'll leave this for the moment. Let me ask it another way. In my mind, maybe it's a very small 2-dimensional little matrix. Do we? I also did not just read all of the section 1. Are we intentionally not doing response services for a year, or is it simply it'll be the minimum of the necessary time it takes to survey, develop survey, execute survey, response, all of that stuff kind of stacked up, and we don't want to act until we've gotten through it? Yeah,
it might be all of those things stacked up.
Okay.
Because I'm thinking back through the time commitments that we wrote for stream 1, and a lot of that, like, said and done and polished out the door, is over a year. So at the very least, we can get started with some manner of that, either slightly before year 1 or at that time frame. We should have enough developed that we can real time trial it.
Sure.
And I think we're going to see a spectrum of engagement. Somebody's going to ask us, do you have an email for a due to this project? Some people are going to say, I don't know what the hell this researcher is saying, or somebody's going to come back and say, this researcher is being very aggressive. Can you help? So I think it's going to be a real spectrum of stuff, and some things we'll be able to do sooner, but an actual soup to nuts, we're helping out with log for shell 2. That's at least a year.
Do you know something that we don't? Is there a log for shell 2 out?
I don't know.
It's almost Halloween. You can't say that this close to the holidays of last year. Shame on you.
There's, like I tell my internal PSERT here, there's always something new and interesting going on upstream. You never know until it happens.
So I think the time and resource estimates have been captured for most of that. Yeah. Do we have any SLOs associated with response that we know of, or do we just want to say that that's going to be like part of the more detailed process outside the scope of this immediate work? Okay.
Yeah, especially with volunteers, I don't want to make any commitments to any timelines until we at least have gone through a couple of these and have more data. And even then, you're still volunteers. How am I going to hold, Scovetta accountable because Microsoft said he would be available, but he fell and broke his foot and he's in the hospital.
Sorry, I lost it. I had a place where I thought that was in here, but maybe not. Oh, yeah, here, hang on. Core services, no, engagement. Engagement model.
So 2.4. Oh, sorry, continue.
Sorry, just 15 seconds and let me flesh out my brain here. Let me just write this down. I forget where I left this. Here, hang on, sorry. I don't want to search. Stop stealing my browser. Aha, did I invent it? Okay, I didn't quite invent it. Quasi, we'll call it. Yeah, fully agree. Of course, we don't want to scare off or have non-enforceable SLOs. Is there even a softer term than that? I mean, we still might, right? If we're going to develop procedures and things, and even if you're a volunteer, it might be, hey, something's happening.
I have to get some funding to make some swag to make people want to be on the team.
Sure, but look, people are volunteering. They're either volunteering or voluntolding, so they are being paid, or they really want to do this. They're going to want to do the professional thing, and it's okay to say it's a hot topic. Try to get back to people, that day, within a couple hours, right?
It might be that we need something almost like pager duty, so that there's one person that's tasked to respond immediately and say, "We're thank you for letting us know. You will hear more information from us within this time frame."
Yeah, that's a good model too.
So 2.3 staffing requirements is going to be contingent upon the group's decision, so that should be updated tomorrow. 2.4, from a time and resources estimate, the amount of time that it's going to take us to define that engagement criteria or refine it, because we have some of it started. And then how do we codify that process is easily going to take at least 2 months.
I think that's.
Yeah, and again, once we propose this to the sponsors, they can say, I like this idea. I need you to do it faster. Here's resources to accommodate that. So we might be able to adjust timelines. But until we get that kind of feedback, I say we be conservative on how we're estimating.
Yeah. And I think part of that is, though, the nature of how we define some of that. Some of this is not bodies at a problem kind of problem. Some of this is like we're breaking new ground in how open source incidents are meant to be resolved and triaged. And while there are existing bodies of work that we can leverage, they're explicitly designed for enterprise, governments, nonprofit level activities. Open source is a whole different beast.
Yes.
So I think that's so really this section is almost done. We just need the decision for tomorrow, and then once that happens, Art to go through and beautify the text.
Yeah, and I'll also take a pass at a pretty rambling Google Doc. I'm pretty confident a lot of it's in here or duplicated, but I'll take a pass through it for anything that is missing.
Don't throw anything out, because once we're done with the plans, I'm going to
Google. I can't throw it away anyway. Sorry.
I'm going to combine it into a single artifact, and we're going to need things like an introduction and conclusion. We'll need potentially statements around explaining certain things potentially. So nothing's should be deleted yet until we're done with our final proposal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, I'm not confident all of the meeting stuff and that was captured in that Google Doc or two made it into here. And again, I think a lot of it did, but I'm going to just pass for that and take a pass and bring things in that seemed important and were not already in here. It's like 1.5 Google Docs to do that with.
So you'll have that done by November 1st?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
I heard a yes.
That won't take long. You heard a yes. Yeah.
Okay. So
I'm
November
looking at what day of the
1st,
week that is, but sure.
that's a
yes.
Tuesday, and it's
I
the
see it
next
now.
meeting that we have
We meet tomorrow.
after
No,
tomorrow's
yes.
meeting.
Oh yeah, so tomorrow, then 2 weeks. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. That's a yes.
Agree.
Oh, I see that stupid sign off. Can I just click sign off? Darn it.
You
Come on. Help
You
me
do it there.
There it is. Okay, good.
Yeah.
What are we? Section 2.
Mhm.
Actually. And this is going to take care of it. And I'm not going to fail to check when I. Okay, cool.
Oh, man, do I have a new PR to look at?
I don't know how that works. Somebody added me to stuff, but I could not, which is totally fine. This process is fine with me. I don't think I can, sorry, make changes more or less to the.
I had
OpenSSF
asked,
thing.
and I'm guessing it didn't happen, but I had asked the section leads plus Emily and Vicky to be added to be able
I
to.
saw that. I thought they
that.
added us, but again, my get push didn't work today. So
I might have used the wrong phrases, but
I might have
So
typed the wrong
we
command.
should be part of the foundation, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we have the commitment to merge in for the particular repo.
I had asked Jory, saying these people I consider, what's the level?
Yeah, developer or something, or whatever.
Basically, along the phrase we ended up with was.
Perhaps this is the problem here.
Oh.
If it helps, I accepted that, and I still don't have the ability to merge.
No? Okay.
No. But Art should be able to find out if he goes to his PR, see if he can.
Yeah,
he has the merge button.
Get there in a moment.
Too fast.
You're already there.
Yeah, I saw that, Crab. I saw you merge it in.
Well, all right, it's okay. So I'm happy to send it to my personal one and over, and if we get this made faster, that's fine. So no problem.
Yeah,
I can work with that.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you all. Excellent progress. Appreciate it.
Almost done.
Almost there. I will talk with you all tomorrow, hopefully. Cheers.